It starts with the fire in the belly to transfer what we know into action. There's a reason why every major religion warned its adherents not to give too much power to the merchant class. The commercial dynamism of the thirst for profit brooks no opposition if it collides with civic and other values. A serious birdwatcher up at dawn into the marshes, binoculars, cameras, pads of paper, pen, glove, sighting. Imagine if we had as many, 10%, imagine if we had 10% as many Congress watchers as we had bird watchers. Functioning democracy is the belief by tens of millions of people that they can't make it happen. That they don't have the power.
Yes.
That's the first stage of controlling people, is to culturally ingrain that from when they are from kindergarten on up, that they're there to shut up, to obey, not to challenge, not to dissent. Even though the whole history of our country shows that dissent, liberated, is the mother of all assent. Almost everything that we like in this country started with dissent. And as a result, we're the only Western country without universal health care. The people say yes. The corporations say no. More evidence builds up on the people's side. According to the National Academy of Science Institute of Medicine, 18,000 Americans die every year because they can't afford health insurance. The Urban Institute just upped it to 22,000 Americans who die because they can't afford health insurance. Nobody dies in Belgium or Canada or Italy or Germany or the UK because they can't afford health insurance. But in America, we have, for too many people, a pay or die system. Now that ought to get us pretty upset, and that's one reason why a majority of the people want a single-payer health insurance system. But they lose every year, and the corporations prevail. And they prevail to a point where there isn't even a vote on the Senate and House floor. That's how much of a lock they have on those 535 men and women, the majority of them, who put their shoes on every day the way you and I do. So the corporations say no, the people say yes, corporations win, the people lose, corporations don't have any votes, the people have the votes, not much democracy there with their representatives in Congress. It's quite remarkable that you get sensitive people to civil liberties get upset about denial of voter rights, but denial of candidate rights hasn't reached that level of civil liberty attention by the ACLU, the Brennan Center, Center for Constitutional Rights. They've taken a few cases, but they don't give it the sense of urgency that how much our voter rights is of any meaning if there's only one incumbent who's really on the ballot is going to win, or if the two parties ignore a whole range of issues that are compellingly urgent to people because they're dialing for the same corporate dollar. Why are we under the yoke of a two-party elected dictatorship where people who agree with each other are adversaries if one part of that agreement happens to go into the electoral arena instead of write articles for the Nation magazine? And so the bigotry, the political bigotry that is directed against any small party or independent candidate that challenges the Democratic Party inside the electoral arena, especially at the national level, comes from liberals and progressives addicted to the least worst voting pattern against these challengers, who they agree with. That's a rather strange experience to have. I'm used to corporate lobbyists fighting what we're doing. I rather enjoy it. I understand them. At least I know where they're coming from. The oil companies, drug companies, insurance companies, banks. But how do you understand people who agree with you on most issues and who turn around and call you a spoiler? These are people who 3 years out of 4 condemned the Democratic Party in all kinds of ways. You could have stopped the war. You should have been tougher and smarter in Florida in 2000 because Gore and you know that the Democrats won, but it was stolen from Tallahassee to the 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court. The Democrats could have stopped the tax cut for the wealthy, say these liberals and progressives, in 2001 and 2002. One time they controlled the Senate and they let a huge Bush tax cut for the wealthy through. The Democrats could have stopped the Patriot Act. They could have stopped some of these Supreme Court nominees. I was up on the Hill trying to get just at least one dissenting vote against Scalia among the Democrats, begging Sarbanes and Kennedy and Gore, and he wins 98-0. Months, years, hundreds and hundreds of U.S. soldiers blown apart, thousands injured for the rest of their lives because they couldn't get the body armor over there. But they got the billions of dollars for Halliburton and KBR and Blackwater, didn't they? This is criminal negligence. Now, have you heard that from Obama? Have you heard that from Clinton? Have you heard that from McCain? Of course not. Of course not. Now, are they smart people? They're very smart people. But you know what happens to smart people who censor themselves? They become stupid people. Some reporters say, where do I disagree with Obama? I said, really, my main problem with Obama is that Obama disagrees with himself. Wow. It's what he knows privately, what he says publicly. Look at his disgraceful pandering tape. And so some people say, well, that's not very significant. Well, I think it's very significant because every reform movement starts with a very small number of people. And that's not a small number of people to begin with. But every reform movement starts that way. If you're not willing to start small up against very powerful odds, you will never grow. And you will never spread the effort to enlist more and more people. So it all starts with fire in our bellies. It does not start just with what we know. It does not start with what we dream. It does not start with what we hope for. It does not start with what we deserve. It does not start with our concern for our children and grandchildren. It starts with the fire in the belly to transfer what we know into action.
Hi. Today I recently read an article by you that talked about changing the voting age to 16. And as a high school student and very involved with politics, I was just wondering what measures you would take in making this actually happen.
Well, first you got to talk about let's see if McCain and Obama come out for it. You know, at 16, you can have a license, drive a car. You can get a job, you can pay taxes. With parental consent, you can get married, but you can't vote. That's not a way to mature teenage years. I mean, teenage years are so trivialized by commercial marketing to begin with that you want to do anything to mature them. And actually, between 16 and 18, they're more likely to enliven their home and their parents than when they're in college and they turn 18. So children talk about these things, parents talk about it, maybe